Good afternoon. I'd like to call the Finance Audit Tendering and Administration Committee Wednesday, February 5th at the Parkdale Room, 12:10 to order. So here we go. Call to order. That's done. Number two, declarations of conflict of interest. Are there any?
None.
In the room, none. Approval of agenda.
Moved.
Moved by Mayor Brown, seconded by Councilor Bernard. Thank you. Approval of the draft minutes, January 8th, 2025.
Moved.
Seconded. Any discussion on the minutes?
Yeah. Page 4,
Page 4.
number 7, introduction of new business.
Okay.
Okay, I want to bring this up again because I did bring it up at, I will be bringing it up again at Environment Sustainability. So we passed a resolution, a motion in that municipal chamber that we call City Council Chamber on November 12th to purchase 4 buses. So when a motion is passed in that chamber, that is a trigger to action. Then we passed another resolution at our regular monthly meeting in December to go ahead and build a new public transit depot. Then in January, we were told, or no, in December, after the meeting, the regular monthly meeting, we had to push the pause button. But there was never a decision made by council to tell Nova not to purchase the buses. Council never said that. Council gave a directive to administration to purchase the buses. So there was a breach in a motion that was passed by council on November 12th by administration. So my question is, why do we even pass motions in there if they're not being followed up on? Because if this happened in the Legislative Assembly, where a motion was passed, Richard?
I'm just trying to get the chair's attention so that I can provide you with a
Right.
response.
Well, the response is clear. There was a breach in the legislative process. Richard, you're active to Mr. McEwen, go ahead.
Excuse me.
Sorry,
Let's-
I would
The chair
like to
gets
hear
to
from the
decide
chair.
who speaks, just
Excuse me,
hang
I'm
on.
chairing the meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, I think you've been, Mayor Brown has been elegant in your point.
Yeah.
Well, here, you can use mine.
No, no, that's
Um,
okay. I've asked him 3 times.
Director Richard McEwen.
There's been no breach in the process. We are in contract negotiations with Nova. However, should administration determine that there's an ability to change direction, that recommendation will be going back to council for council's decision. We have not stopped moving forward with a bus purchase.
So we have a purchase order with Nova.
We are working.
No, Richard, yes or no?
No. we are
Okay, so but
working
the
through-
direction from that council no, Richard, this is not funny.
I'm
This is not funny, because a
Your
legislative
worship.
process, hold on, a
Settle
legislative
down.
process took place in that chamber. And then for you to laugh it off, I don't appreciate that this is a laughing matter or humorous.
No, there's no change.
We made a decision in that chamber,
Not change.
and then to say, well,
Let me
we're
try
wiggling
mine.
around with it. Well, if you're gonna be wiggling around with it, that should have come back to the appropriate committees, like this committee, environments, to put the pause on.
That's the thing.
No, it's not working. Oh, yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Richard, Director Richard.
Sure. Yes, we are working on that information to bring it back to the respective committees. We have some information, but we need more information on whether or not the proposed change can be done. We have sought information from our funding partners as directed by council to see if there's ways that we can improve the funding, and we are waiting on that last word from our funding partners. At which time, we will bring the information back to council for council's decision. Administration has made no decisions on this file.
Well, you have. You're wiggling around with the contract. You have made a decision, Richard, Mr. McEwen. You have. But you have not informed us. I only found out about it because I asked the question at, I believe, that Environment Sustainability meeting.
No, I brought that information forward at the environment sustainability.
Not about the buses. I had to ask the question, Mr. McEwen. Go to the minutes. I asked, what about the purchase of the buses? Oh, we pressed the pause button on that. If you're gonna do that, we should be notified. We should be notified because we are the elected members that pass a motion in that legislative venue we call the chamber. And are you the only one that made the decision on it? Are you the only one that made the decision?
Again, Chair, a decision has not been made. We are working through that and information will come back to council. Council makes the decision, administration doesn't make the
We
decision.
made the decision on November 12th. Put a purchase order in for 4 buses. That's, Richard, how can that be any, I don't see that that there's no clarity to that.
Let Dan take this piece because it's process.
Director, or Dan Jenkins?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Through the Chair to His Worship. So there were, so the resolution was to execute contracts and agreements to make it happen.
Purchase them.
That is in process. The contractor Nova Bus has requested significant material changes to the draft contract that they had submitted, specifically on payment terms. The payment terms, as per the RFP and as per their proposal, was for payment on delivery, and they've asked for a substantial increase. There are additional points of negotiation on the contract, but we are proceeding on that basis. But at the same time, we were also presenting the options that council can consider in terms of changing directions on the question of electrification at this point in time, because of the financial implications of that decision. But as Director McEwen has indicated, administration has made no decisions on this. We're really just continuing on with the instructions that we received, and also coming back to council and committee with additional information that you will use to make your decision in the best interest of our residents.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'll just finish up. Like this has angered me for some time. And then to have people smile at it to think that this is not serious really offends me. Because this chamber has been on this path to net zero for the last 5 or 6 years. And then to get off track. And then to say, well, no, a decision has been made. A decision was made, Mr. Jenkins, to purchase 4 buses. And this goes back to May of last year on the negotiations of the buses. It goes back that far. I've looked into the background material on this, and I'm quite offended that now we're saying we're just juggling around. We haven't really made a decision. A decision was made by council.
All right,
So, again, Mr. Chair,
Okay.
so could I ask, so did you solely make the decision to halt to not go forward on a resolution? Was it you, Mr. McEwen, or was it the CAO, or was it someone else in senior management? Who made the decision?
Chair, no decision has been made.
A decision has been made. We have stopped the process to purchase the buses.
Well, I don't know if we have or not, but I do know this.
Go ahead.
Anytime we pass a resolution, if there's new information comes in or the cost goes up or something happens, we need to know about it. So you know what, if it hasn't got back to us yet, it hasn't got back to us yet. That doesn't sound to me like arbitrarily staff went and said, I don't care what the resolution says, we ain't buying it. Sounds to me like they've been talking to Environment Sustainability, they're gonna come back and say, here's what we recommend. Doesn't sound to me like anybody stopped anything.
Mr. Chair.
But you know what, if we had passed a resolution to purchase them and they were from the United States, would we want to stop that purchase right now? Yeah, we probably would.
Yeah, but we're going back to November. And not only that, there was a price, there was an amount in the resolution. There was a dollar amount. It's not like we didn't know, we knew what the amount was. Now we're saying, well, we didn't know this, we didn't know that. Someone made the decision to press the pause button. So I'm assuming it was you only, Mr. McHugh. Correct?
If there's a pause coming on our electrification, it would make sense that you would pause the purchase of electric buses, because we're not gonna be able to charge them. So.
Of course we're not.
Yeah,
Not
so if
without a
there's
depot.
information, if there's information out there that we need to know,
Yeah, not without a depot, we need the depot.
Right.
So if you don't have the depot, we already paused that, so that's what I'm saying. Pause the depot, and then we can substantiate, or we can justify that we put a hold on the purchase of the electric buses. Look, Mr. Chair, I just wanted for the record.
okay, thank you.
I don't think
Okay.
it's
Point-
going away.
Points have been made, all right, thank you.
Mr. Chair, could I just make one comment just to close
Yes.
out the conversation? I totally respect the fact that the mayor is concerned about how this all rolled out. And I think it all boils down to, at the end of the day, that it was a communication piece. There was a resolution passed by council, there was another second sober look at that whole entire file, not just that resolution, but the whole file related to electrification. And I don't think there's any one person that decided to hit the pause. I think there was a collective concern, even by our own provider, that they just need some reliable buses now versus going full on electrification. So I think we're all gonna get to the same end point, but the delay in that happening has caused frustration. And the process and the fact that that wasn't communicated to council when the resolution was already passed, I totally understand. That's where it all comes from at the end of the day. It's, nobody likes surprises. And I don't think there was any intent on part of any staff member to usurp decision-making happening in the next room. I think it was an honest attempt to make sure we're handling this file in the best possible way.
Thank you, CAO Sue, for those kind of concluding comments on the thing. I think it's a good summary of where the file is, and we'll leave it at that and await further information and advice from the departments on that file. Okay, business, okay, 6, discussion reports.
Chair, did we approve the agenda?
Oh, sorry, yeah, we did.
Oh, okay, I thought that was part of the approval
No,
of the
it
agenda.
was
it's
under
the
business
minutes.
arising.
Been around some
Okay,
minutes.
all right. I just had an item that I was gonna question, but we can wait till we get to it. It's no problem.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, good, okay. So 6, discussion reports, the draft 25-26 budget, Department of Finance, Lane Pino.
Well, you have members here to speak on each link, do you wanna let them go first? They're B, you might as well make them A, they're here now.
That's,
There's also utility manager too, budget transfer, water and sewer, are you dealing with those too?
okay, I'm fine with moving B to A and A to B, if that's, is that okay? All right, so
Eastland.
Oh.
John,
I didn't even see you guys up there.
Come in the back door.
East Link Center, update to the committee, and here we are, gentlemen, on the progress to date on potential expansion. John, Evan, and Phil. I'm not gonna say your last name, Phil, because I'd only butcher it.
So just point of clarification, so we're going to
Agenda.
6B2, is that correct? Capital,
6B.
budget transfers, park, where,
No,
are
so-
we A, B, C,
Yeah, so
B?
6B now becomes A.
Oh, I have the old agenda,
Yeah.
the old agenda, okay.
And 6A becomes B.
Okay, so I just have, let me just go to the new agenda. I got this up last week.
I don't
Okay.
even have a B in mine.
No, I have it, thank you.
There's nothing
That
in the
must be that.
bookmarks.
Yeah, no, this is, that I got last week.
Alana, do you have a,
Nothing in the bookmarks.
There's nothing in the bookmarks for Eastlink because they didn't have any
It's just under,
information or
it's just
report.
under your main agenda,
Didn't see
main
that.
page.
Sorry, sorry.
Okay, yep,
you okay, Alana?
yep, so there's no report.
They're reporting.
They're reporting, so there's nothing in our bookmarks.
No,
Okay,
no, this is just a
Gotcha.
verbal update on the potential expansion. So Phil, John,
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair, councillors, for inviting us in or having us in, allowing us to come in. I guess where we're at, things have changed somewhat since we've presented our capital projects for the next 5 years to finance earlier in December. Everybody's aware, I guess, of what's going on and where monies will be in federally and stuff right now is a bit on hold. I'm sure everybody's aware of that, no surprises there. I guess what we're wondering or hoping is that we can send in a revised 5-year capital plan, move some things from this year down the road and put some additional things in 25. One being the cost of the drawings and the design and the drawings that we tendered. Council gave us $25,000 to go to tender. On the design, we did go to tender. The plan from the get-go was to lump everything into one budget and find some funding partners, and that I would suggest is perhaps not perhaps what's gonna happen. And I guess our fear is that this becomes another study that gathers dust while we wait for everything to settle up in Ottawa. So we're probably 6 to 8 months away from drawings, if we so go that route, which kind of gets us back in the queue with we hope with the federal government and the provincial government, so that we can secure those partnerships. So I think it's important for the city to look at all the avenues, and one of them is for us is to go ahead with the drawings and the design phase of the project. There is a cost to that, of course. So that would be in our new capital request for this year, for 2025, 26, sorry. So I guess that's kind of where we're at. We have a new deck built for presentation to all levels, the potential partners. It's just not gonna go anywhere right now, that's for sure. So the ask would be, the tender award is 2.625 million for the design of the facility and the engineered drawings that would remain. I guess in my mind, it has to be done at some point in time, as finance had said before in meetings, that that's the route we have to go. I've been in discussions with, as earlier this morning, with other partners that those funds are probably gonna, it's kind of like the chicken before the egg, I think, and you guys might know more about it than I do. You almost have to, in order to get the funding, you have to have the plans. So it's you can't get the funding until you present the plans. But the funding is probably available through the federal government, through an infrastructure program. But until we have plans, we can't apply to have it funded. So we're kind of in a catch-22, and we can't go forward without going forward, I guess. So for us, it's it goes back to all those things that we've talked about in the past. I mean, the city's desire is to be a world-class community, and a world-class community requires world-class facilities. And it meets all the targets with the provincial government on their infrastructure requests. It meets the sports entertainment component of the city's plan. So I think we've already gone through all the presentations and the boxes that it checks and doesn't check. I think we're on a good road. I just think that don't continue on the road, we're gonna get bogged down again. It'll be another study that'll be on everybody's desk.
So,
Yep.
so at the end of the day, John, the 25,000 that the council approved, you're going to the tenders. The tender results have come in.
Yes.
So now, the next step obviously would be to do the design and
Right.
engineering.
Right.
And what you're saying is you need that to be able to work to get potential funders, and they're gonna wanna know what you're talking about, what you're looking at, what the work involves. So
Exactly.
it's just it sounds to me like it's a natural second step before you can, and the third step will be what funding we can get in place.
Yes.
How long did it say it would take to do the design and engineering?
6 to 8 months.
6 to 8 months, okay. So by that time, government would be, federal government.
We hope we'll be on a path that we can move forward on. If not, excuse me, I guess the worst case scenario is we have a design and a engineer drawings. At some, I mean,
Yeah.
not put aside my role, but as a resident of the city, I think at some point in time, we're going down this path. It's either gonna be a build, or it's gonna be, or else we're just gonna be
That it is.
treading water. I mean,
It sounds to me like it's the age of the building, it's harder to attract, different events into that facility
well, again, we, I
compared
mean, we
to
can.
Avenir Center or a lot of the new venues that have gone up in the Maritime Surrounds.
Yeah, and I think it's been hashed, for 25 years that our facility, as solid as it is, wasn't built the right way. And 20 years ago, there was a plan put in front of council, and for 7 million, we wouldn't be where we are. What's gonna happen in 20 years' time? Who knows? I've looked around, and it's apples and oranges, I know, but I look at, I think, somebody can fact check this if they want, but I think there's seven NHL arenas now going under retrofits. They're not building new, they're redoing, and they're $800 million, I'm not trying to compare us to them, but when you look at what people are doing in the industry, the new builds are not where they're going in the renovations, because they're 30 years old, like Washington and Carolina, you can go all down through the whole list.
What are they doing in Washington?
They're doing a 3-year plan just not far from where we are. It's all done on the outside, and they open it up, they have a new facility that, better amenities for the fans, it's all about engaging the fans, it's all about engaging the public for concerts, whatever, conventions, whatever it might be. It's not just hockey games, there's way more components to this than that.
Has there, since you've been in, then, have you had any more communication, collaboration with, Racino, or the, what do you call it, Red Shores?
Red
Oh,
Shores.
yeah, no, we meet regularly, I mean, they have again, we've all been around the chambers and discussed it, they have a vision, they have a dream of what they wanna see, and I think for us, it's just a matter of being part of it, it's, what we'll see in 20 years around that area, who knows? I mean, you see new retail areas, you see new, who knows what it is, restaurants, whatever, but, sorry.
Okay, well, I was just gonna say that, just to that point, we've recently had conversations with the Red Shores in terms of increasing the flexibility or accessibility of people moving from the casino side to the rink side, and just creating that traffic, and that's, kind of a first step in terms of facilitating that process.
Like, just on that, relationship or dynamic, from what I understand, and it's only from having conversations, I don't think there was, the past history in that was maybe as good as it should have been, and in terms of the two partners, you had, one side and Berlin Wall in the middle, and
Yeah,
left hand, right hand weren't talking, so anyway, I don't know where that's gonna go, but I have a feeling or an understanding, perhaps that culture's changing.
There's a different dynamic there now, very much, in terms of ease of accessibility, the partnerships and things of that ilk. I guess the other thing I would say, in support of what John's saying, is that, it's a big message when, we can say that we've got a commitment from the city in terms of when you approach other funders, and not only do we have a design, but we have a commitment from the city in terms of moving the project forward.
So, Mr. Chair, it's an 80-20 ward that we have. 80% is us, 20% the province. So, are you planning to reach out to the province, or do you want the 2.6, did you say, John? You want the 2.6 from the city? That's what you're asking.
right now, it would be in our ask for 25 budget, 26 budget.
But the rink is 100% owned by the city.
No, but just remember, any modifications, renovations we do to the facility will have a ripple effect not only on the rink, Trade Center, Red Shores, the whole area.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm coming from. And, Philip says, who knows what will be in and around this venue? 10 years, 15 years, that's for us to determine. That's why we're sitting around this table right now. Do we want an expanded, renovated Eastlink multi-use sports entertainment center? Yes, we do. Yeah. The alternative is to build a new one. And if you look at what they're doing in Sudbury and London, Sudbury and Peterborough, Ontario, they're looking at facilities in the $250 million range. We don't have that money. We don't have that kind of money. And they're question they can do, maybe they're looking at the renovation venue or avenue to improve the facility. Look, I'm supportive of it. I think that what we did 20 years ago, 22 years ago, when we took the seats right down to the glass, added the corporate boxes, it changed the whole approach and how
It
people
made it much
viewed it.
better.
And I know we did have I don't think we had designs from the architect out of Vancouver, Victoria. I think we just had a concept plan. But when the facility was built in 1991, I can't believe how many engineers came from that project. Because everybody had an idea how it should have been built. Well, we know how it should be built. Has to be added on to 1,300, 1,400 seats. This will give us a document that we can go to the Red Shores, Atlantic Lottery, federal government, the provincial government. Are you on? Are you in? Because we can't pay the whole
No.
bill ourselves. We need help.
That's the idea, doing the
Oh,
design and the engineering.
Of course, I know that. So I think this is the right track to go down.
Okay,
Are there any other questions or anything further, John or Phil, that you?
No, just appreciate the time to
Just one question
as
if
far
I
as the
may.
updated
Open our
five-year,
bills.
five-year capital, I mean, I think that could be passed in anytime.
Okay.
Not the sooner the better.
copies for everybody there. I'll just give them the chair and you guys. That's the new. Again, we moved some stuff, there was stuff on there that was gonna be affected by the reno and stuff that wasn't gonna be affected by the reno. If the reno went ahead, so now we've pushed some stuff away and tried to trim it as
What about the plant?
much as we can. It's, well, right now, we're just a couple of motors away from being fine, so that's not gonna be a big issue right now.
That was a $700,000.
Yeah,
CFO Dan.
Thanks, Chair.
Sure.
Through the chair to John. You had mentioned that there was some federal funding that you'd identified, but you can't apply for it without detailed engineering
Yes.
drawings. And what program, what stream is that?
It's, no, it was the Infrastructure Canada one. If I can give plans. I mean, you know,
No.
with all due respect, it's a conversation, right? That nobody signed the note that said I can do this, but I was told as early as this morning.
Okay, we might want to have a chat about that because we
Yeah.
had some correspondence with infrastructure PEI that may
Okay.
provide a little more
Yeah.
insight on that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure, yeah.
Would that be the same program for the public transit depot? Was that the same program we were looking at? I think we're looking for ISIP funding.
I think so.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
but
we had that funding in place.
I don't think there's any funding there. But I believe there are some restrictions on the ISIP funding.
I was
If there's
told
a-
this morning that I could get all 2.6.
yeah, so
That's what I told.
Okay.
So,
does that, there's a dynamic that was mentioned, something about, and where it fits, I guess, around the infrastructure thing, if there's a hockey,
Professional hockey.
if there's a professional
under the
hockey or
bill.
the queue is a tenant that you don't qualify for, throws you offside, is that?
I have a letter from the minister
That was a new bill.
that claims that, so, that says that's not true.
Denies that? No.
Yeah,
Federal minister?
Federal minister, I have a letter, there it is right there. It just says that that's not a fact. So that was under new build, not under renovation. And that's the Build Canada Fund, I think it is.
Right. ISIP. Expedition 2.
Yeah, exhibit A and B.
Anyway,
Yep, okay,
Again, thank you all.
thanks, gentlemen, that,
for your time.
for,
That's been submitted and, you guys now have the new ask.
yeah, 25 morphed into 2.5 and we'll see where it goes,
2.6.
2.6.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you very much, thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
Okay, so 6B, the draft 25-26 budget, Department of Finance, Lane Pino, manager.
Thank you, Chair. So, excuse me. So, pardon me. So it's been the practice with the departments, with respect to the city, they've been coming to their own committees with draft department expenditure budgets, so we wanted to share ours and where we're at this point in time. So the attachment that we provided is a summary schedule. I'm just gonna provide a few comments on the just a couple of the columns there with respect to budget change or forecast adjustments for 24-25. And then just a few comments on the 25-26 proposed that we're currently working through right now. So with respect to the 24-25 forecast, there's not a whole lot of adjustments in there at this point. Touching on a few of them, salaries there. The first line on the schedule, we did have some vacancies with a few of our positions throughout the year, including my role as manager of finance, the AP clerk role, and we had an admin assistant that was vacant for part of the year. And we have a recent vacancy with the senior finance officer that we're currently working on backfilling. The second line there is
So that's the 50,000 that you're.
that's the 50,000, yes, yeah. So the second line there, the 270,000, there's within the professional auditing services, there's our annual audit costs for our financial statement review. But there was also there's also some general consulting dollars in there of about 300,000 that we identified that we weren't gonna utilize this year. There is some funding that we've set aside for support with work done to bring forward the updated procurement bylaw, but we did find it reasonable to reduce our forecast on that line by 270,000. A few of the other adjustments here, staff development is based on where we are for year to date, so that's provision for supporting our staff with training and professional development. The bank service charges again represent what the year-to-date expenditure is with respect to the various agreements and the operating bank accounts that we have for with RBC and so on.
So what's the 20 there for, Lane?
That's showing an increase, so we're increasing the budget from 80 to $100,000 forecast this year. And that's primarily service charges.
So your increases are in black and your decreases are in red.
Correct, yes. Under the revenue category, which is the order is a little bit different here. The revenue's in the middle of the schedule, but so for property taxes and the provincial grant, those are on track with what we're budgeting based on the money that we're receiving there. The parkades, the third item there is trending lower this year compared to budget, so we've reduced that by 100,000 to a forecast of 300,000. The municipal expenditure grant, this was a preliminary forecast of 3.5 reducing to 3. We're gonna review that again. There's some outstanding claims with respect to the province. So we're working on our third quarter submission now, and so I anticipate once we review those figures again, we'll probably become closer to budget or a little bit over budget. So we're forecasting 3 million, but I anticipate it's gonna be above 3.5, which we'll update.
How much did it for?
What's that?
I'm sorry?
Take it back up to what we budgeted.
Take it up, back up to what we budgeted for, yes. The other revenue line there of 1.28 is facility rentals, bank interest with respect to lines of credit. So that's tracking. bank interest with respect to interest collected on our balances earlier in the year. The so that covers off the revenue, so it's an adjustment of about $600,000 down, and we'll probably revise that forecast to become closer to budget once we review the municipal capital expenditure grant again. Under the interest on long-term debt, the 3.9 million, so that's with respect to our long-term financing, is on track. These two items obviously are big factors when we look at our operating budget going into next year as based on approval for our expenditures going forward. It will impact both the interest on the long-term debt, obviously, as we will look to finance our capital additions, and the depreciation for anything that gets put into use into the next fiscal year. But based on our current forecast now for 24-25, we're on track with respect to those two items. The under insurance,
Sorry, Mr. Chair. So, Lane, in the past, when I'm gonna give you the 22-23 budget under fiscal services. It shows the balance of what we owed, principal and interest, right? So that's what we paid. So are you telling me now, because last year, if I look in last year's budget, have you looked at that? We don't have it broken down like this, because I think we were told that that is just part of financing debt. You don't need to show it. So you're actually telling us that our expenses for interest on long-term debt is about $4 million.
correct,
And so the depreciation is about 9.5.
yes.
So what column is, I see interest, is principal on the depreciation? This is a business 101 accounting question.
Yeah, so the depreciation is just the write-off of the assets over time.
Understand that.
Yeah.
But on the interest,
The
is the principal and the interest that we're paying
No.
down?
So we would be paying the principal and the interest. The principal would hit our balance sheet for the
Right.
city.
Correct.
The interest, this would be the item that would be hitting
Right
our
here.
operating budget.
Okay, so where's the principal payment? Do you have an account of that? Because I've asked for that in the past, and I've been told, like, since this 22-23, or maybe the 23-24 budget, it's in there, it's not shown. Can I get something that shows me what we paid principal and what we paid in interest?
We would have that breakdown, and we would do that as part of our year end.
But will that be in our budget book for 25-26? It wasn't in 24-25.
You're looking for the breakdown.
CFO Dan?
We, through the chair to your worship, so we can certainly provide you with the breakdown of
Yeah.
principal and interest payments. The principal portion of the payments doesn't hit our operational budget. It's a repayment of the capital portion, so when we budget, the depreciation number on average will come close to what the repayment of principal is, so you have to kind of pick one or the other to include in your operational budget.
Right.
So the principal and interest payments that we pay in our long-term debt every month and in total each year those are cash flow items, not
Understand.
it's only the interest portion of it that hits our operational budget, so we don't budget for that per se. But if we have to borrow additional debt, or we're gonna repay debt, with one source of funding or another, that's the kind of, that's how we cash flow it. But it's only the interest portion that hits our operational budget.
Okay, just to simplify it for me, if I borrow $1,000 and I have to pay it back over 10 months or 12 months, they'll say, okay, here's your principal, here's your interest. By the end of it, I might pay $1,200, $1,300. It's the same principles used here. When I pay down on my loan, I'm paying down both in the principal, which is bringing down my debt load, and the interest that I've been charged to borrow that money.
In that payment, yeah.
Yeah, so I've asked for it in the past, and I just like to see it, if we can see what amount is being paid down in principal and what amount, I know what amount is gonna be paid in interest, you have it here at 3.9 million. So that's, I just wanna have those numbers, it's good to refer to them. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councilor Bernard?
I just want a clarification, so, under that same line item, interest long-term debt, we have 3.981. And then moving into 25-26, we have an extra 1.25. I'm just wondering, where'd the 1.25 figure come from? To give the total for 25-26 is 5.2 million. Are we saying we're gonna borrow around 12.5 million in capital?
We're actually, I think, through the chair to Councillor Bernard, we're guessing that our capital budget's gonna come in around 50 million.
Okay.
And if, it's gonna take us 12 months to build that, on average, we're not gonna borrow it right up front.
Right.
So
Right.
we said half of that, we'll borrow half of that for the year, and 5% of 25
That's
million
where you,
is.
that's where you're getting that number then?
Yeah.
So you're using 50 million, but you're saying, okay, that's why.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, so the next category there, was under insurance, so this is cyber insurance and general coverage. So this is based on an estimate going into next year and a quote with our insurance providers. So we're factoring a $100,000 increase that will be reflected in this current fiscal year. And then an increase of about 250,000 going into next year.
And that's for what, cyber and general insurance?
General insurance.
So they hit us with $100,000 additional charge for
this year.
25.
Yes. I believe it's based on fiscal, on calendar year.
If I may, Chair, so our renewal doesn't happen until June. We've always asked for, I think, to get a renewal notice before budget time, but the estimates that Betty received last spring fell quite a bit short of what the actual renewals come in at. So the renewal in June, in total, the city's gonna spend about $1 million on insurance through our contract with Cooks. So because it only started in June with that higher rate, we only had a portion of our fiscal year, that's gonna come up to that 869,000 that we're forecasting. Had a discussion yesterday with Marcella Cooks. He doesn't feel that we're gonna see as much of an increase this coming year because the commercial markets have softened. The residential markets are finding there's additional pressure there, but because the demand for commercial insurance is lower, they feel that the rate shouldn't be increasing as much. But realistically, we're likely into, pretty close to $1 million renewal again, so that's why we bumped that up at this stage.
And how often do we
Go to tender?
go to tender on that?
I may be wrong on this, Chair, but I think the tender was for, it was a 5-year agreement, but I think we can opt out of that at any point in time. Should we find we want to go to tender and find another carrier or agent, so we do have flexibility, I understand it, but it was, I think we're probably 3 years into a 5-year understanding there.
Okay, Lane?
Okay, so in the 24-25, the only other line item is under fleet management, and that's based on year-to-date expenditure. So as noted, so with respect to the expenditure forecast for the department, it's a minimal adjustment we're showing of a reduction of 135,000. And on the revenue side, it's a reduction of 600,000, mainly tied to the municipal capital expenditure grant that we'll update. The next category, just on the right-hand side of your sheet, are the adjustments that we're proposing for fiscal year 25-26. Under the salaries, we have a provision in there for collective agreement increases. We also have a finance officer role in there, and that's currently budgeted within water and sewer. So we're just determining in terms of where that budget should lie. So for the sake of our draft submission right now, we're reflecting it within our salaries. The professional auditing services, again, it's with respect to the $300,000 line item. We don't anticipate requiring all of that funding for next year, so we've put that forward as a mitigation or a reduction of $225,000. Under fiscal services, and again, looking at the revenue, so for property taxes, we're assuming that a minor increase there of 844, almost 845,000. We're also reflecting under the proposed that there'll be another $1 million that's tied to property tax revenue, and CFO Dan can speak to that piece if there's any questions on that. And the provincial grant we're providing for cost of living increase in there as well on the second line there of $375,000.
So, Mr. Chair, if I can just go back up to insurance quickly. So the cyber insurance, is that coming from Cooks? $130,000?
I believe so, yes.
It is, okay. And we're saying $1 million increase down on finance revenue, 24, 25, 26, is that right, Elaine, is what you said? So that must be used in the old agreement, 2017, 2022.
Yes.
Okay, so if we get a new agreement, which is a little better, hopefully that number will go up. So who estimated the 1 million? That come from property taxes?
So-
Like the property tax department where Scott Ryan worked?
So we've calculated that increase, so we took our end of year assessment values, so our 440, our large assessment base, and we've applied the cost of living, calculated cost of living increase, which is the CPI bump that assessment does on our all of our tax bills that go out. And that's 1.8%, so that is basically just a 1.8% increase on the revenue that we would have calculated on the end of year assessment numbers. So that's no change in rate, that's just a change in the assessment base that the province would be
Right,
applying.
that's not on increased construction and everything that's on the ground.
Well, it's calculated on the December 31st just passed, the assessment values, so that's the end of year assessment value, so it's our most recent information in terms of the value of the assessments.
So to clarify, the assessment, when my home or any home is assessed, it's assessed for the calendar year, correct, Lang? From January 1st to December 31st, okay? Whereas our budget year is April 1st to March 31st. So there's a missing quarter there. Is that, you've calculated that in here also? To reflect our calendar year, which is April 1st to March 31st, the calendar year for assessments is January 1st to December 31st.
I think they just use the assessments as of December 31st, the total volume of
And times by
assessment.
1.8%.
They add a 1.8 onto that.
Yeah, but that doesn't calculate all the construction that has taken place over that calendar year, which also will increase our, increase our tax base, correct? So we haven't done that.
So we've reflected everything that has happened up till December 31st, so any assessment changes up to December 31st are reflected there, but for this coming year, no, we haven't reflected the increased assessment base, so we may come in a little higher.
Yeah.
We forecast last year, I think, about 46 million in property tax, and that's within a few $100,000 of what the end of year assessments are, so we've come in fairly close. There is a little bit of a delay in terms of the assessments that get done on new construction, because it takes a little bit of time for the assessors to go out and after the substantial completion of the building and get the assessments updated, so there's a bit of lag there.
How does the $1 million increase this year, how does that compare to last year?
It's quite a bit smaller, because we had, I think we had a 5% bump on our CPI last year, whereas this year we only have 1.8%.
inflation's down, but fortunately that negatively impacts our revenue, but
Yeah.
from the taxpayer's perspective, that's a good thing.
But if I look at property taxes, 24-25, we budgeted 46,068,000, and the forecast, correct me if I'm wrong there, Lane, or Mr. Jenkins, it's $46,068,000, no change, right? But now we're saying we're projecting that it'll go up to 46,913,000. That's because of the 1.8% increase, not the increase related to all the construction and all the new tax roll that will come from that.
That's right.
And, okay, and we saw no change from our budget to the actual forecast for this year?
We did factor in a little bit of an increase last year. So we're kind of consistent in the way we're forecasting. And it may be slightly conservative because we know we will get some growth. I think in the last couple of years, we have seen in some categories, we've seen a reduction in the assessment. Our commercial, I think the Daniel J got reassessed from commercial to non-commercial, so that negatively impacted our revenue too.
But the Daniel J would fall under federal grants. They don't go under assessments, correctly? Like they don't take a dollar value of the building. With federal infrastructure, it's a grant in lieu of taxes, correct or wrong?
I think they pay property taxes. I believe.
Yeah, property taxes as a grant, not based on the assessment. I'd like to, if we can find that out, that'd be, I think that's what I've been told by former managers. Thank you.
I never heard that one before.
Yeah. Does the province pay property assessment on their buildings, or do they pay for a grant in lieu? What is the province, the Shaw building, the Jones building, are they all tax assessed at the value of the building, or is it assessed at the grant that they established for that building? The value,
Have to get back to you on that one.
yeah, I think both of them are, please do. Thank you.
So just globally, so property tax is 46 million for a round number, which is the combined residential and commercial, right?
Yes.
So then it's almost, is it almost 50-50?
No, look at your assessments.
Or
your budget.
Anyway, so that's fine.
Wish it was.
Anyway,
No, that's fine, okay. I thought I did yesterday, but anyway, maybe I'm just looking at it wrong, that's fine.
Okay, so just covering off some of the larger adjustments there, we talked about on the revenue side. The interest on long-term debt, we covered that off in terms of, so with assumed capital expenditure next year, that it's assumed will require further debt financing to support that, and that's the interest estimate that we have.
I'm just gonna ask again, clarification again, so the 1.25, Dan, you were saying we're looking at 50 million, but we're only gonna, we never use all the money within the year.
We will borrow 50 million on April 1st.
Yeah.
We'll do some construction projects and we'll probably pay for them in the fall, some of them,
Right,
you
so
know,
we won't be
some
charged
advances.
any interest till we actually use it.
Right, until we write checks, yeah.
That's why, okay, and this still, I
So
don't
just
wonder
as a-
how
as
you
a-
come up with that figure though?
It's just a ballpark, really. Based on when we kind of expect that we'll have to spend the money, like, we actually earned interest on our bank accounts early in the year this year.
Yeah.
And then as we progressed and made payments on Gateway and Simmons and these things, we drew all our cash down and started to dip into our line of credit, so, yeah.
Okay, alright. Thanks.
And just the final larger adjustment there is under insurance with respect to our insurance coverage going into next year, which we already discussed.
Okay.
If I may, Chair, I would like to speak to the two new initiatives that we have there. So under salaries and benefits, we're going to bring forward a request for a procurement officer position to assist with our procurement, our new procurement bylaw.
Bring forward a what, sorry?
A request for a new position for finance, for a senior procurement officer to lead our procurement within the city. We currently don't have a professional, experienced procurement person on staff, so that's gonna be an ask coming
I
to.
thought we always had one. What was the purchasing officer, I guess I'm thinking of, purchasing officer, so, okay.
Also, under property taxes,
Is there a dollar number, what's the dollar number on that?
120,000.
So what about our procurement bylaw? Should we not have that in place first?
Well,
I think that's what we need, guys, like, we've been discussing this now with the previous administration for 4 years. Like, and we've had templates that are already out there. So we're gonna hire a procurement officer without a bylaw. Like, I want the bylaw in place. And I know it's down here, but this has been going on too long. And now that we're coming into this whole Canada-USA trade war, we're talking about buying local. Well, we better make sure that we have a bylaw, procurement bylaw, that addresses not only buying local, but supporting local. So, guys, I'm not supporting a procurement officer until the bylaw is in place. Then we can have that discussion. So, to me, put that aside, get the bylaw done. And I think that, you know what, Mr. Chair? We've given timelines that we keep moving the goalpost down the field. Let's put a goalpost fixed right here, 30 days, get the bylaw to us, 30 days.
Well, nobody said we were actually gonna hire one, this is just an ask I have.
Well, I'm making my comments clear that let's put the bylaw in place first.
Okay, CAO,
Just want to clarify, we did talk before about the bylaw, the resolution that came through council for the bylaws that council wanted amendments to. There's, I think, believe
the list of 10, you mean?
that is on that list, and I appreciate what you're saying, your worship, about timelines. If you want, they weren't done in order of priority in the resolution, so if the procurement bylaws the one you want to see before any others, then that can happen in advance of anybody getting hired. I guess if we don't address this position in the budget process, then we're gonna have a whole year of trying to manage procurement without a person. So it's a little bit of the chicken and the egg. We can probably get a procurement bylaw to you in the next couple of months. But if we pull this out of the budget exercise, then we don't have someone quarterbacking that.
So, through the chair, so the 2 million that was approved, or 2,055,000 that was approved last year in the budget for doing discretionary hiring, was this not one of them? And if it wasn't, did all that 2 million get spent?
No, there was no, through the chair to Councilor Bernard, there was no request for a procurement officer or any additional finance staff, for that matter, in last year's new initiatives or budget.
So that 2,055,000 for hiring, how much of that has been done?
Good question. I know certainly a portion of it has been. We've hired some building inspectors, some fire inspectors, some police officers, so a number of those. We've got a director that wasn't in the budget from the year before. So a number of those positions have been filled, but I know that they are still in process. But that's something that we could get back to with.
Yeah, so kinda, Mr. Chair, I kinda wouldn't mind looking at that. We never really ever had the chance to go over it and say, this is what's needed, and this is why. It'd be interesting to have a look at that, maybe put a freeze on it until we see what we actually need. And that may be one of the positions that we need. And it can come out of that money that we already approved for hiring.
If I may speak to His Worship's comments in terms of the bylaw versus the position, I think it's important to know that the bylaw in and of itself doesn't do anything to actually purchase goods. It's the people that we
We've been doing it,
employ.
Mr. Jenkins, we've been doing it for a long time with a purchasing officer and a team upstairs that have done a great job. Over the last couple of years, it's kind of sort of little all over the place. So procurement office to me right now is not what we need a bylaw in place. Get the bylaw in place, then we can work and frame it on what this person will be responsible for. And maybe you or Elaine can answer the question. For expenditures last year, capital expenditures, which is where your procurement officer would come in. What were we at? 30 million, 40 million dollars,
This year we're in,
24, 25.
we'll be higher than that considerably. I think the current forecast is around 55 million.
I think
That
so.
we'll spend this year. And all those tenders have gone through our purchasing office in finance over the last year, the year before, the year before. I think they've done a great job. But if they have a bylaw with parameters that they know they have to work within, that is to buy local, support local, I think I could really get my head around it.
So if I may continue, the difficult part is in the administration of the bylaw, not just the bylaw words. And we have a good administrative person in our purchasing officer. But she has no formal training in procurement, no legal training, and,
What has she been doing up to this point?
well, she's only been in that role for a relatively short time. The primary guy that we had looking after procurement is no longer at the city, hasn't been for a couple of years, so there is a gap. So certainly my recommendation is that we wouldn't, we may pass a bylaw, but we wouldn't make it effective until we have staff that are able to administer the bylaw. So if we have processes to follow and judgment calls to make, that we need to have the people in place, like in planning, that we have registered professional planners to make determinations in terms of the legislation that we're dealing with and the applications that come forward, the proposals that come forward. We do need to protect ourselves and make sure that we're getting the best value for the dollar, and protect ourselves legally on the procurement process. I don't need to remind council, I'm sure, that we had several procurement bumps in this
Oh, yes.
last 12 months.
Yes,
Okay,
we have.
so if I could, so let's, what my advice would be is let's, as the mayor's pushing and I support, is let's work on getting the bylaw in place or first draft or whatever, council, and the, hopefully the staffing thing will follow. And we can get, get this to a conclusion. It's an important piece, and as the CFO eloquently states, we spend money, we don't raise it, so let's get a document in place to support that process. Okay,
If I may, there's one other new initiative that I just wanted to bring
Okay.
forward. So currently, we don't charge any differential tax for non-resident commercial assessments. And I think that we may want to look at that as an opportunity to raise some additional revenue. We charge, all of our non-commercial categories have non-resident rates that are higher than our resident rates, but we don't do that on the commercial side. So that's a potential for some additional revenue for the city that we might want to consider.
is that something maybe, Dan, you could, maybe for the next meeting, put a report together on it and run some numbers and what that would look like and a little more,
Sure.
just a little more background on it?
And I think that will come, our next discussions will be the our
Yeah.
capital budget first and then our operational
In the
budget, so
next-
we'll have a
In the
fulsome
next,
discussion on
yeah,
it
the
at that point.
next few months,
Yeah.
circle back to that.
Yeah, and this would be part of this coming budget process, so.
And Mr. Chair, just I do have to leave by 1:30.
Okay. All right.
This long, because we
Okay.
just
All
quite a bit left.
I just have a point of clarification.
Okay.
Again, I know we're gonna get to it, I don't know if we're gonna finish this agenda by the time, because you have to go. So, just correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Jenkins. If we pass a procurement bylaw, the date of implementation will depend on the training of a procurement officer and staff. So if we do pass in 30 days or 60 days, it doesn't mean that it goes into effect until staff are trained we're trained, like, you've said it many times, we spend money.
Yep.
We don't raise money, we spend money. So we've been in the business since 1855, spending money. So I think we have a good track record of how we spend our money. Now, we've had some bumps and some rough spots over the last couple of years on this whole procurement issue. But let's get the bylaw in place, let's get it working for the city, for our expenditure, especially hopefully this capital budget that we can use it. We can use the new procurement bylaw. And the last thing, on raising vacant properties, I did send to finance what they're doing in St. John, New Brunswick, on looking at taxing vacant properties. Have you guys looked at that yet? Or Lane, maybe I'll send it to you. There is a contact over in the city of St. John. They're working with the province of New Brunswick on dealing with this vacant property. So I'll forward it on to you, Lane, and then you can reach out to them.
If I may respond, Chair, certainly we've been buying goods for more than 100 years, and but the difference with the procurement bylaw is that we would have a law, it would be a law
Yes.
that we would have in place to direct our purchasing. And there's there's power in the law, but there's also a responsibility that comes back to the city. So we are legislated then to perform a certain way. And if we don't have the capacity to perform in that way, then we're going to expose the corporation to risk on procurement. So I think it's important that we have the army in place before we declare war, I guess is kind of
Yeah,
what
no,
I'm saying.
that's your thought process. My thought process is get the bylaw in place, we'll work it out. We've worked it out with other bylaws.
Okay, that's.
Thank you, sir.
That's good, thank you. If we could move on, budget transfers, Public Works, Paul Johnson, acting manager.
Thank you very much. The budget transfer document should have been circulated in your council package. These are account codes which are over expended. Finance department advising me of that and looking around trying to move existing budget as opposed to requesting new. Move existing budget in to cover the overages. Have generally tried to stay within the same service area, so i.e. moving the sidewalk or moving money from one sidewalk project to another. There are cases where that wasn't possible and had to branch over one service sector to another. Have done my best with limited time to figure out exactly how it got over budget. There does appear to be a number of projects that probably should have had carryover budget, or it's not carryover, re-budgeted funds to complete the project. And there was no budget for them, but we do have the expenses to pay off the contractors on their final work. So I've had limited time to delve into all that. This is my best attempt to try and get the red numbers off the sheet for the finance department at this point in time. May have to come back in the next couple of months as some more invoices come in to reassign funds again and do what we can. But currently, we are maintaining a balanced or a net zero budget change. Open to any questions, thank you.
Yeah, and I think, Paul, you bring up a good point, and I was gonna ask you, because I know we had safeguards in place whenever an account goes empty. It used to flag. And I know Dan and I've had this conversation in the hallway one day, but when you talked about there should have been carryovers, and I 100% agree. If we have a project that council passes and we have an amount that we passed, it seems that there's this imaginary line that all of a sudden that money doesn't get transferred over. It's got to be rebudgeted again. So I'm of the belief that if there's a project that council approves and there's a certain number to it, and the project's not completed in year one, and it moves on to year two, it's still, that money should carry over. So what you're doing here then is any of those accounts that have went dry, you're going through whatever budget you can, finding surplus dollars, adding them to a project that, okay.
Correct.
Anyway, you gotta do what you gotta do, but I think this year, with any projects that have already been approved by council, we need to carry that money over.
Mr. Chair, I don't know if surplus dollars, I think it's unspent dollars.
It's what it is, yeah.
So if I go to page 10, you're taking money from what was budgeted, Paul, for Ronald Parkade?
Capital account sheet, I'm sorry, I don't have that same document, capital
Okay,
account
it's-
sheet,
it's-
1 of 4, 2 of 4.
It's number 1.
1 of
No,
4?
no, sorry.
Three of four, Paul.
3 of
It's,
4, thank you.
if I look at the sheet itself, the spreadsheet, it's 2, the second one.
Yeah.
And it's sheet 3 or 4 that was said.
Yeah, sheet 3 of 4. So street lighting had no capital funds assigned to it for this
Is
current
it Troy
fiscal.
Street?
Street lighting had no capital funds assigned to it this fiscal year.
Ones that we opened.
There were, it would have been close to, I'm rounding up, would have been close to $100,000, 970, yeah, 970 some thousand probably. That was incurred on a project, account code, indicating Fitzroy, Rochford, Terry Fox. I haven't had a chance to figure out exactly what that was, but I'm trying to find $100,000 somewhere to transfer unspent as of so far this year, transfer $100,000 budget into street lighting, into that account in street lighting, so that those expenses which have been incurred will be balanced. Not having money already in street lighting, I obviously have to cross over to another service sector, and looking for some significant dollars, went to the Pownell Parkade. It is a project that we still hope to do. We do not expect to get very far in it this fiscal year. We will have to re-budget funds for it in the upcoming fiscal.
So just, Paul, for clarification, where it says panel structure, transfer from, transfer to, streetlight Fitzroy, so you're not saying it's really for Fitzroy, Rochford, Terry Fox, it could be any streetlight, is that correct? Or is that a specific?
There was close to $100,000 paid out of that account, which is called Fitzroy, Rochford, Terry Fox. I have not had an opportunity to have staff pull the invoices for me as of yet, so that I could get some more detail off it. I do have confidence that when staff are paying invoices and processing them, that they do their best to put the proper account code on it and do their best to ensure that it's work that was done within this fiscal year. When they're doing that, they don't necessarily have in front of them what budget was in that account code, nor do they have what is remaining of that budget in front of them, which is in that account code. What happens is finance goes through on a regular basis and then informs a manager that here's the account codes that you're overspent the budget on, please address. That's what I'm here trying to do.
Okay, last question, Mr. Chair. So 2 of 4, Eastern Gateway, 1.6 million transferred from, correct, transferred to, so went from Eastern Gateway to 1.6 million to name St. Peter's Belvedere Roundabout. So we don't know if it was for that, it was something in that project area, that's just trying to clarify.
I can only assume, I didn't see that invoice when it was being paid. I can only assume that staff on that day had an appropriate invoice on that project, and I'm sure they would understand that it was to the St. Peter's Brackley Point roundabout project, which was generally a last year's project, if not a little bit of the year before.
2 years ago.
They probably have that account code written on a Post-it note or in their head. They just see the invoice from that contractor for that site and they code it and send it off and it gets paid. The issue is there was no budget in the current fiscal for that project.
So the reason I asked, Paul, being involved in contracts, there's progress payments. The last payment of the progress payments is substantial completion. So this is probably the substantial completion of the roundabout. Can we find that out? Because that means we haven't paid off the substantial completion for the Eastern Gateway, because that's not beyond its 6, 9, 12 months.
And your worship, obviously, 1.6 million, I'm looking to cover a deficit situation of a significant amount. And there's only certain accounts I'm gonna be able to go to that have that money. Right now, I'm taking it from Eastern Gateway. In no way, shape or form do I think that the Eastern Gateway is going to be surplus that much at the end of the project. I'm crossing my fingers and hoping it might be that surplus for work done in this fiscal. Even that, I've got my fingers crossed on. I may have to come back, as I said, next iteration, and put money back into that project. Just got some information this morning and have just asked, as you folks are going through the first part of your agenda, I'm saying to staff, find these invoices that are close to 1.6 million and show them to me so I can go over and see, was it progress 4, 5, and 6 and hold back release? Was it substantial completion? What was it that we incurred that work this year? Was it an invoice in this fiscal for work that was done in the previous year that maybe should have been charged there? I'm sorry, I don't have the fine details on it all.
Anyway, it just strikes me in these points, and our CFO and finance manager are here, and I know Elaine, you're making copious notes there, so I hope some of this stuff is, as it relates to budgets and.
Yeah, no,
We've had those discussions, before that, that these things get, improved upon, and
yeah, we've been having good discussions with Paul and we'll
Yeah.
continue to.
Chair.
thank you.
Done.
Lana?
This question is, through you, Chair, probably is appropriate for the other committee managers or department managers that are here today looking for budget transfers. I just wanna clarify that if we approve a transfer of budget money that we're not gonna have to turn around and re-budget the same items that council has already approved, or particular councilors have put on the, and fought for in past budget years. So they're just gonna move forward, that they don't have to be reallocated, they're already budgeted from, say, if there's something we didn't do this year, but it was budgeted, it's just gonna move forward? Or does that mean that if you're taking the money and moving it around, then we have to start all over again and re-budget for that particular project, item, whatever that is? Chair.
Defer to CFO.
Thank you, Chair. Through Councillor, Deputy Mayor. So the capital budget is a financial plan. It's one component of the financial plan. So really what council is doing is saying, for the next 5 years, we plan to spend this amount of money on these things. So if we didn't spend it last year, as we planned to, but we plan to spend it this year, we would have to add that to our capital plan for this year. So we would, council would come back and say, this was, we've discussed this, didn't get spent last year, we're gonna spend it this year, and it fits into the overall picture. But we can't say that we don't plan to spend that money this year because we approved it last year. Well, we approved it last year, but we didn't spend it, so we still have to spend it in the current year. So it's a spending plan, it's our financial plan for the next 5 years on the capital side. So, the discussion wouldn't be the same on a Hertz Hall project or a Simmons project that we're in midstream on, and we really kind of have to finish the project. But we have to show it in our capital budget. So the money's not spent, we have to reflect that. We've already had a discussion on the project, so one would assume that the same parties are at the table deliberating capital projects. It should be given that those projects are proceeding and just have to be completed, and the money spent in this next 12 months, or maybe it's kicked out another 24 months, maybe it's 2 years down the road, but we're just planning for spending on the projects. As some projects may have been delayed because we couldn't get a contractor to do the work, or
But, Mr. Chair, but Dan, if I understand you right, so if we pass a budget of $50 million, and let's say there's $1 million in for a project that we were going to do that never got done in '24. So and let's just say all the other projects got done, so we spent 49 million, so then starting a new budget cycle, that millions that we already approved is not getting carried over, you wanna put that as part of our new borrowing.
Well, it's not new borrowing, but we do plan to spend it in the next 12 months. So,
That hasn't happened last year, because I had to fight for a project again that got approved the year before. And that's what we're trying to avoid, is that doesn't happen. Unless there's new information or something to come up, but I mean, other than that,
yeah, the capital budget is really what gives administration the authority to go out and spend money.
Yep.
So,
so if council passes the capital project to do, then the next thing is it gets done. But as you know as well as I do, not all projects can get done in that 12 months by the time you get design done, it goes to tender so on, so sometimes that crosses over to the next year.
Yep.
But you shouldn't have to say that money's gone, it's not gonna move ahead, because you've never used it. It's like you said earlier when we were talking about the 50 million this year, well, we're not gonna have it all spent, we're just, as we spend it, we'll pay the interest on it. So that money never gets spent, so that should carry over into the following year.
well, it really is, but it does have to factor into the money you plan to spend. So council still needs to give staff the authority to spend money on projects. There
But
have
they
been
already-
capital
but they
projects.
already did.
Yeah,
But they already did. They passed a capital budget with those projects in it, so council, in essence, gave you permission to spend that. What happened is you never, if you never had time, the particular department that's responsible, there's a number of projects to do, and one or two doesn't get done in that fiscal year. But council has approved that to be done, so to me, that should carry over. You're not borrowing extra money, it's already been approved in that capital budget, you haven't spent it yet. So to me, it shouldn't have to go back to council to have another conversation about somebody trying to fight for it again. It's already been approved. And it's already been, the money's been approved.
the project has been approved, so Hearts Hall was approved.
Yep.
Um,
And I'm just using that example, I mean, if we go down this road, there's gonna be a lot more of that going back to council, a lot more arguments over, well, this was approved last year, now I gotta fight for it again.
But Councillor Bernard, when you approve the budget, it's based on the expenditures that are in that capital budget.
Exactly.
So if it's a carryover, it has to be in the budget for 25-26.
Yep.
Whether it was not spent or partially spent.
Yep.
That's part of the budget document, but that gives the administration, after resolutions, motions are passed, to go forward and execute those motions, correct? The main one is this budget document. So everything that comes from it, whether it's buying buses or building a transit shed, it comes from this budget and passed by council. So I think what you're saying is, it's been going on, it's just it has to be carried over into the budget document. So when a resolution is put on the floor, it's included. It's just not, we budgeted that for the year before, we'll just put that to the side. It has to be part of the document that is approved by council, because that is the law.
And it would be, in the past, it used to be, it would have your capital budget, then it would have the money coming over for the projects that weren't done the previous year.
Correct.
So, anyway,
Okay,
I do gotta get going, guys,
Okay.
25-2, I could,
okay.
Mr. Chair, could I just ask, I didn't think, I thought we were gonna get into the meat and potatoes under funding agreement with the province, procurement bylaw update. Is it possible to meet in a couple of days to finish this agenda? I have to go. I have another meeting. I apologize. I know Frank has been waiting for his transfers. We can do that.
why don't we finish the transfers today?
Is that all right?
Donna's queued up here too, she's just sitting in my office
Yeah.
waiting to be heard.
Is that all right, Mr. Chair? Cause
Yeah.
I apologize. I just have another,
That's fine.
I don't know if it's the same for you, Deputy, but
Yeah.
if we leave, we have no
Yeah.
quorum.
But I've read them all, they're pretty straightforward, these transfers shouldn't be a big issue.
So
We've
can we
all
pass
read them,
resolutions
so-
to pass them?
I mean, they all make sense, so.
There's a tender
You
one,
have some tender awards.
But yeah, Donna was here for the tender.
there's a couple of tender
Which
ones.
hasn't gone to planning and heritage yet, so,
Okay, but if we meet on Friday afternoon, if that's possible, we can check all these boxes off. Other than the budget transfers, and,
And then defer the number 8.
yeah, that would have to be deferred, yeah, but everything after the tender, the dump box.
Okay, I'm fine with that, if that's,
Is that all right with you, Deputy?
to
So
meet
that
on
we can just
Friday.
finish off these transfers?
And then Yeah,
then we'll reconvene on Friday afternoon if that's possible.
yeah, I mean, that certainly then,
Is that all right with you, Chair?
I will
responds
be
to,
out of the province on
to,
Friday. I leave
Yeah.
Friday, so wanna do it Thursday.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, the transfers are being cleared? So
Yes.
Frank doesn't need to return and Paul doesn't need to return?
No, we'll finish on the transfers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that all right?
Yep.
So Councillor Ramsey is, not Councillor Ramsey, but Councillor Bernard, you're not available after tomorrow?
I'll fly out Friday morning first thing.
Okay. So
But we
you're
should,
saying Thursday,
Thursday fine?
1 o'clock to 3?
no, I would have to, I would have to be, I'd have to be out of here no later than 2:30, and I would not be able to come in until,
About 9 to 12.
I have a
No.
funeral tomorrow morning at 10.
no, I could
After
do,
that,
I could do 12 till 2,
yep, that's fine, I can do that too.
or 12, even 12:30 till 2:30.
Yeah,
But
12.
I can't do
Either of those work
after
for me.
2:30.
Tomorrow at 12:30 on that one?
Yep, I can do it tomorrow.
Could we,
12:30.
but we can't call it a meeting, we need
Too late.
24 hours notice.
Yeah, that's right.
It's a continuation of this one.
I don't think that's allowable, or permissible under the MGA.
Just pause this meeting. We have meeting
You
tomorrow.
can adjourn it.
What's that?
You can adjourn, not, you can go into recess.
That's what I mean. If we're not done, we're only halfway through, we're just recessing tomorrow, I got a meeting at 2 o'clock, I gotta get to.
24 hours, yeah, no, they know. They're just wondering though, Tracy, if they can recess instead of adjourn.
Yep.
Yep.
There you go.
Does that still allow us, do we have to follow within the 24 hours?
Tracy, come back.
It doesn't have to, we're
I'm just trying to find out, she
Tracy's the
knows,
guru.
she's the meeting guru.
So you can recess, you don't have to.
You don't have to have 24-hour
You
notice?
don't have to do 24 hours, notice if you recess.
Okay, so we'll do the reset, and let's go back to finishing off these transfers. Thank you.
I'll move, Public Works.
Okay, seconder,
Okay,
Councillor Bernard, moved by Mayor Brown, seconded by Councillor Bernard on the Public Works transfer. Okay, who's,
I'm gonna do water and sewer. Josh is
okay, I'm sorry, okay, thank
not
you,
available today.
okay. Richard, go ahead.
So similar, we received invoices for work at St. Peter's Road and Belvedere Roundabout, Harley Street reconstruction and Garfield Street reconstruction. These are capital projects that were finished a number of years ago now. We did carry over the holdbacks for a couple of fiscal years and then they got dropped. But we do finally have the invoices, so we needed to make budget transfers in order to make these holdback payments to Island Coastal.
and what was it for?
St. Peter's Road
Roundabout.
and Belvedere
Yeah, yeah,
Roundabout.
yeah,
So we did water and sewer infrastructure with all of those street-related jobs, so St. Peter's Road,
Yeah.
Harley Street, and Garfield Street.
So these must be again substantial completion, and so this is the final bill.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the
I'll move that.
holdbacks and any final adjustments.
I'll move it.
Moved by Mayor Brown, seconded by Councillor Bernard, thank you.
Is there a second one there, Richard?
Yes, yeah, no, on the operational budget transfers. So again, it's near the end of the year and some of our accounts have been depleted. So we need to find accounts within the budget that have money left, so it's not an increase in the budget, but transfers to cover these costs. So repair and maintenance of buildings, our vehicle repairs, and increased expenses for our water valve and maintenance repairs.
Moved.
Moved by Mayor Brown, seconded by Councillor Bernard, thank you. That it, Richard, that's it for water and sewer?
Yes.
Okay, Parks and Rec, Frank Kuhn.
All right, so you'll see the report in your package. I'm assuming the first one is capital, am I correct? Or no? Operations.
Maintenance supplies.
Okay, so it's the first one's operations. So the operations ones, it's just a budget transfer for park maintenance supplies. It is, like you said, getting near the end of the year, and we need to transfer park development in the amount of $6,500 and $11,000 to the other account to park maintenance, and it's a total of 17,500. So we're transferring from small various accounts where we still have funding left. And I believe a lot of them is actually our vehicle accounts, where we've got newer vehicles, so we're not spending as much in park maintenance. So it's 17,500 total that we're transferring.
Second.
Moved by Mayor Brown, seconded by Councilor Bernard, thank you.
And the second one is regarding, relating to capital. And you'll see there's 4 different projects that we have to transfer for. The first one is we're taking from the ball field development account to the pickleball courts. Those were just, those were cost increase associated with having to buy court barriers, and once we get in to do the surfacing, there had to be some asphalt repair to warrant to the actual resurfacing. And the other 3 relates to Confederation Landing, the multi-sport outdoor facility in Mulberry, and the central ball field light replacement. All of those are associated with warranty holdbacks that we have to keep, or we keep for a year, and we were invoiced. Previously, they were always set up as accruals, so I know that's something I've talked to finance
Paul.
about, and they will be set up as accruals in the future, cause it doesn't make sense to budget for something that you've already spent. So it just didn't get set up properly, so we need to find the money this year, so we were able to find it luckily from our Simmons account that we were under. So,
But substantial completion has not been done yet.
it will substantial completion. There will still be holdbacks on that. And this year I will be pushing, like I had previously, that they need to be set up as accruals. There's no way that the department should be budgeting for work that has already been done. So it's something that was missed, I think, last year. It's the only year that I recall in my 24 years here, so.
Moved. I'll move it.
Second.
Seconded by, moved by Mayor Brown, seconded by Councilor
Playground equipment. And the next one. Mr. Chair?
Playground equipment.
Yeah.
Tender awards,
Pardon me?
those are tender awards.
Yeah.
You wanna do those, Frank? The tender awards?
Tender
Am I on there next, or, sorry?
Park playground equipment?
Yeah, so I just sent that to finance for their information. I think it's, if everyone can read it, it's, I think, pretty straightforward.
Require approval from.
I have it here in front of it. It was approved in Parks and Recreation Committee. For some reason, I don't seem to have that. Here it is. Okay.
So it's my understanding that once things get approved at committee, they're just coming here to confirm that procurement was followed properly. So there's no discussion on the items, it's to say yes or no to procurement and whether or not that's been followed properly. That was the information I was given yesterday, because I was a bit confused about, again, back from one committee to another. So I guess the question on Frank's items would be, if they're already approved by Parks and Rec, did we follow procurement and then we move on from there? Is that correct?
Well, we can delay it all we want. I mean, our role in finance has been to make sure the tender's done right. That's why it's called finance, audit, and tendering. Different committees
Right.
are under responsibility to go out and do the tenders. So when it comes to that committee, it doesn't make sense because it didn't go to one committee, but another one's meeting that could address it, has it been done right, to do it now, as opposed to, well, let's wait till I see it first and approve it, and then we'll send it next month. It doesn't hurt to do it now. It's not going anywhere. So if another committee says, well, we don't agree with the tender, they wanna drop it, we drop it too. It's just that work's been done. They've got to review it, make sure that the process is done properly.
Right, but that's the only role of this committee, is the tendering process. So we don't need to get in the nuts and the bolts of what equipment was ordered, where all that discussion would have taken place at Parks and Rec. That's all I mean.
Yeah, unless it has something to do with our procurement policy, yeah. We're not here to make decisions on another committee,
That's right,
but this committee's responsibility is to make sure the tenders are done right.
that's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, Frank.
So the report's in there, and it's more or less, if you see a red flag, it can be we can take it back to our committee, but as our committees have said as well, that this can delay the tendering and award process, and I know we've had our discussions with finance, and we're looking at how, we don't want, as things get busy, in particular in the spring and summer, we don't wanna have that it has to wait to go to another committee when potentially, I know our committee's meeting two times a month, oftentimes in the summer times when we're awarding tenders. This one here lined up well, that it could be sent to finance committee prior to going to council on Monday. And what this is awarding of playground equipment, getting it out now, getting it ordered, getting it here, having it here at the end of the fiscal year. We have the money left in our budget, so that in the spring, we can start installs on a number of these playground equipment. We are getting, as far as we feel, a reasonable deal too, based on what initial estimates were on the playground equipment, so, which is good, so.
And it's a Canadian-made piece of equipment, right, Frank?
What's that? There is, every company, there are two companies one company that is one Canadian owned and it has Canadian manufacturing. The other company has a Canadian distributor and has been Canadian for many years. Manufacturing though has moved to other parts, US and other locations.
We talked about that.
All products, just all products too, even if a Canadian manufacturing, they still get components oftentimes from other countries, including the US. So it's gonna be a very difficult thing to, and we went through the procurement process as of right now, but in the future, we'll be looking at, that option, but it's not easy to distinguish, we're so intertwined. So our intent would be that those will be here by the end of March and we'll be paying out of this fiscal year. We get our orders at council.
Moved, seconded by Council, moved Mayor Brown, seconded Councilor Yankoff, thank you. Thank you, Frank. And then back to you, Richard, I guess.
Yes, so this is a tender that went through Public Works and it has come to the Finance Committee because it is making use of the canoe procurement process, which is an open process across all of Canada. And it was a local Action Auto that also responded or is part of this tender process. We have quotes from them that are based on the canoe procurement pricing. And it's good pricing for us. When I look through the documentation, the prices are actually coming to us from 2020. And Public Works would like to see this move forward to council.
So, Mr. Chair, Richard, Mr. McEwen, so when we get a procurement bylaw in place, will we need Canoe? Would we need these other platforms? Would we as a municipal government be in a better position to do them on our own?
Well,
Seek out.
the benefit of this process is that it creates a very good tender price because the companies are bidding, recognizing that they could be supplying across all of Canada.
To the mayor's question, I think around the canoe piece, I think it was understood, or at least it's my understanding, that our new bylaw, when it gets implemented, will include the canoe
Using these
piece where appropriate or as appropriate.
To the chair, our current policy does provide for the use of buying groups, and that canoe would be one tool that would be available to us.
That's the word, I guess, a tool.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
All right, moving on.
So, products, you've looked at them, use that Canadian lens, Mr. McEwen?
Best I can, it is a local supplier who
Okay.
will provide the equipment to us. I'm sure with metals included in it, it's tricky. I mean, we are very intertwined with US and Canada. I can't guarantee that all piece of it is, but it will be a local supplier who's benefiting from this purchase.
Thank you.
That's
So okay to move that one forward to
Moved,
council?
moved,
so.
second.
Seconded by Councillor Yankoff, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Rory Chason, Land and Heritage,
No, we're not doing that today.
not today.
That's the same one that Donna's here for.
That's what Don is.
Right,
Well,
but we just got through saying-
Rory has appeared.
That we said we were just doing up to the
Budget transfers.
budget transfers.
Did you wanna deal with that at planning?
Yes.
Okay.
And we're meeting tomorrow at 12 o'clock anyways.
And then we're meeting today at 3 o'clock for planning.
Right.
Okay, sorry, Rory.
I have to go, that's all. Yeah, we won't have quorum.
Okay,
I have a meeting at 2.
When are we planning to meet again as finance?
John, what's the recess, we're recessing until what time?
I'm flexible, so whatever
Tomorrow at
works.
12.
12 or 12:30?
Well, Terry said 12, I said I can make 12, but it's really, I guess, up to the rest of you.
And when
Yeah,
is planning
I'm-
meet? Yeah, what time?
12?
I can't be both places.
Rory's gonna-
Tomorrow I have a meeting at
Gonna
11
be,
until 11:45.
to be continued,
So I can be here at 12,
and we're
Get to
talking,
planning
looks like
before-
tomorrow at noon.
today at 3:30.
Yeah, I'm completely flexible, you guys tell me what works, I'll be here.
So we're meeting at 12 till what? Till
2.
12 to 2?
12 till we get it done, about 12 to 2.
Well, I have another meeting at 2:30
Yeah, so-
tomorrow, so it's
yeah.
12 till 2 for me.
Yeah, and then somebody should tell Steve Bellamy that
Yeah.
he's in the queue.
Okay,
Is he here?
12
And
o'clock
that's for a
tomorrow.
closed, we have a closed session when it comes to that item,
CCO,
but he wouldn't be coming into the closed session with us.
it's his, that's who we're
Live stream.
contractors with.
Oh.
We're in recess, thank you. Till tomorrow at
Do we need to move and
12 noon.
move?
Move, recess just
Move
goes
to
like this.
recess.
Okay.
Yeah. When you hear the bell, come back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you put that